AITA for freezing the college fund after my wife used our money to fund her affair? I thought I was paying to keep my daughters safe. I was paying for another man to sit in my chair. I'm Alexander, 38, and for 11 years, I thought being Serena's husband meant quietly doing the hard work to keep our home steady. Serena and I had 2 daughters, Audrey, 14, and June, 10. I wasn't a perfect husband, and I wasn't a perfect father. I missed games. I missed school pickups. I missed dentist reminders. I missed the little daily things that fathers are supposed to be there for without being asked. But I never disappeared from my family. For 10 months, I was overseas on a long assignment that I had agreed to because the money was good enough to catch up on our bills, keep the girls in their activities, and finally start the college fund Serena and I had always talked about, but never managed to build. Before I left, we had an informal savings account that we called the girls' college money. It wasn't some trust with a lawyer watching over it. It was just an account with a purpose. A promise, really. Every time I transferred money, I labeled it clearly. For tuition. For girls. Mortgage plus activities. College savings. I did that because I was trying to be organized, not because I was suspicious. Back then, I still trusted Serena so much that if she told me the sky was green, I would have probably checked for a reflection before questioning her. The first few months away were rough, but the usual kind of rough. June wanted me to record bedtime messages, so I made a whole folder on my phone. One was for nights when she was scared. One was for nights when she was mad at me. One was just me reading the same goofy chapter book she liked, even though I hated that book by the second week. Audrey was harder. At 14, she had already started acting like parents were background noise unless she needed a ride or money for something. Still, she answered my video calls at first. She would roll her eyes when I asked about school, then quietly hold the phone up to show me some sketch she was working on or the new shoes she wanted. Serena looked tired in those calls. I believed that part. She would sit at the kitchen table with her hair pulled back, one hand around a mug, telling me the girls were emotional and the house was too much. "You send money and think that means you're here," she said one night. I was sitting in a rented room with bad lighting, a suitcase half open on the floor. It was past midnight for me. I had just finished moving money into our joint account because Serena had said Audrey's school fees were due and June needed something for her program. "I'm trying to keep us afloat," I said. She let out a tired little laugh. "No, Alex. You're trying to control us from a different time zone." That sentence bothered me, but guilt has a way of making you accept things you would question if you felt innocent. I was away. She was home. She was packing lunches, answering school emails, and dealing with June crying at bedtime. So instead of asking why keeping our bills paid was suddenly control, I apologized. I apologized a lot during those months. When Serena said the mortgage felt tight, I sent extra. When she said the girls were asking why I cared more about work than family, I stayed up late and called, even if my eyes were burning. When she said Audrey felt abandoned, I wrote Audrey a long message that took me almost an hour because I kept deleting anything that sounded defensive. Audrey replied with one sentence. "Mom said you'd make this about money." I stared at that message for a long time. I typed, "I love you and I miss you. Money isn't the point." She read it, but didn't answer. June still talked to me, but kids tell the truth in pieces. They don't know which details matter. One Saturday morning for her, very late Friday night for me, she was carrying the phone around the living room, showing me a paper chain she had made for school. She plopped down on the couch and said, "Oops, I'm on Derek's side." I sat up. "Whose side?" "Derek's side of the couch. He says the corner cushion is his because it doesn't sink." Before I could ask anything else, Serena's voice cut in from somewhere off-screen. "June, don't wander with the phone. You're making your dad dizzy." The view shifted, and then Serena was there, her smile a little too tight. "Who's Derek?" I asked. For a split second, her smile vanished, then it was back. "A friend from my cousin's circle. He helped fix the garage door and carried in some stuff when my back was acting up." "Don't start." "I'm not starting." June said he has a side of the couch. "Because he made a joke, Alex." "Seriously? This is what I mean. You hear one thing, and suddenly I'm being interrogated." That was how most conversations went after that. I would ask a simple question, and Serena would turn it into a trial where I was already guilty. "You don't know how hard it's been. You aren't here. You don't get to audit survival." So I backed off. I told myself Derek was probably just some neighbor-type friend helping around the house. I told myself if Serena was lonely, maybe she needed people nearby. I told myself trusting my wife was better than becoming the kind of husband who searched for betrayal in every sentence. Then the school portal emailed me. It wasn't dramatic. No sirens. No gut feeling. Just a dull little notification in my inbox on a Wednesday morning. Outstanding balance. Activity fee and tuition installment overdue. I thought it was a mistake. I had sent Serena the money 3 weeks before. The memo had said, Audrey tuition plus June activity. I remembered because Serena had texted, finally, after the transfer cleared, and I had swallowed my irritation instead of picking a fight. I forwarded her the notice. Did the school mess this up? It says unpaid. She called me 2 minutes later. Not texted. Called. Why are you checking the portal? She snapped. Because they emailed me. No, they copied you because you probably asked them to. Serena, I sent that money. If they didn't apply it, we need to fix it. Then ask the school why they're incompetent. I am so tired of being audited by my own husband. I'm not auditing you. I'm asking where the tuition payment went. You always turn love into accounting. Then she hung up. I should have dug deeper right then, but I was still trying not to be unfair. That's the part people don't understand about betrayal when they're on the outside looking in. They imagine you find one red flag and suddenly become a detective. Sometimes you see the red flag and talk yourself into believing it's a towel on a chair, because the alternative means your life is already burning and you are far away holding a phone. A month later, my schedule changed. I was able to come home early. I didn't tell Serena, not because I wanted to catch her, or at least, that's not what I told myself. I told myself I wanted to surprise the girls. I pictured June running down the hallway. I pictured Audrey trying not to smile, but smiling anyway. I pictured Serena being relieved, maybe crying, maybe finally letting me hold some of the weight she kept saying I didn't understand. I took a cab from the airport with my suitcase jammed against my knees, too wired to sleep and too nervous to eat the sandwich I had bought. When we turned onto my street, I felt this stupid rush of happiness. The porch light was on. The lawn needed cutting. One of June's little wind spinners was bent sideways near the steps. For 3 seconds, I stood in the driveway smiling like an idiot. Then I saw a car I didn't recognize. It was parked close to the garage like it belonged there. Not pulled up for a quick visit. Parked comfortably. A paper cup sat in the cup holder. A gym bag was visible in the back seat. I walked to the front door, my suitcase wheels clicking behind me. Inside, a man's jacket was hanging on the rack by the door. A pair of unfamiliar shoes sat beside Serena's boots. On the small table near the entry, where I used to toss my keys, there was a set of keys with a bottle opener shaped like a little baseball bat. I heard a man's voice from the kitchen. Junie, backpack goes by the stairs, not in the hall. Junie. Nobody called her that except family. I stepped into the kitchen. Derek was standing by the counter in sweatpants and a t-shirt, holding one of my mugs. Not a guest mug. My mug. The dark blue one with the chipped handle that Audrey had painted for Father's Day when she was little. He looked at me as if I had walked into the wrong house. Serena turned from the stove and froze. Audrey was at the table, earbuds in, a bowl of cereal in front of her despite it being late afternoon. June was on the floor trying to zip her backpack. June saw me first. Dad. Her face lit up, and for one beautiful second, everything else disappeared. She ran into me, so hard my suitcase tipped over behind me. I held her and breathed in the shampoo smell of her hair and thought, I am home, I am home, I am home. Then she pulled back and looked over her shoulder. Is Derek leaving now that you're back? The kitchen went silent. I looked at Serena. Why would Derek be leaving? Serena put the spatula down very carefully. Alex, don't do this in front of the girls. Derek cleared his throat. Maybe I should step out. I looked at him. You should have stepped out before I came home. Audrey took out one earbud. Seriously? Mom said you'd do this. That hurt more than Derek standing there. I had spent 10 months imagining my daughter missing me. Instead, she looked irritated that I had interrupted something. Audrey, I said, keeping my voice low. I just walked into my house and found a man living here. I'm allowed to ask questions. He's not living here, Serena said too quickly. Derek shifted his weight. I looked toward the hallway, then back at Serena. Then why is there shaving cream in my bathroom? She blinked. I hadn't seen it yet. I guessed. The look on her face told me I was right. June's arms tightened around my waist. Don't fight. That was the only reason I didn't say what was building in my mouth. I picked up my suitcase. Girls, I'm going to put my bag down. Serena, we need to talk. Derek, you need to leave. Derek gave a small laugh, as if trying to make me look unreasonable. Man, I was just helping. You can help from outside my house. Serena followed me down the hallway before I could reach the bedroom. Do not make a scene. The bedroom door was half open. I pushed it wider. There was a phone charger on my side of the bed that wasn't mine. A gray hoodie on the chair. A bottle of men's cologne on the dresser. The framed photo of Serena and me from our anniversary had been moved from the dresser to the bookshelf, half hidden behind a stack of folded laundry. I stared at the bed. Serena stood behind me and said, "He stayed a few nights." I turned around slowly. In our bed. Where was he supposed to sleep? For a moment, I actually couldn't speak. She folded her arms. He had nowhere else to go, and he helped when you couldn't. Helping doesn't require sleeping in my bed. You weren't here. So you replaced me? Don't be dramatic. I looked past her at the hallway where June was peeking around the corner and Audrey stood behind her, her expression a mixture of hard and scared. I swallowed everything I wanted to yell. Derek leaves tonight, I said. Serena's eyes narrowed. You don't get to come home after 10 months and act like you know this house. It's still my home. They're still my daughters. And you are still my wife until one of us files paperwork. Fine, she said. File. Do whatever makes you feel powerful. But don't punish the girls because your pride is hurt. That was the first time she said it. Punish the girls. It would not be the last. I slept in the den that night. I say slept, but I mostly sat on the old couch staring at the ceiling while the house made noises I didn't recognize anymore. A pipe clicked. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, Serena closed a drawer. At one point, I heard Audrey whispering through the wall and Serena's low voice answering. I wanted to run upstairs and explain myself to my daughter. I wanted to say, I didn't choose being gone over you. I wanted to say, I paid for the roof over your head and the school you attend and the activities you love. And that wasn't love instead of presence. That was love in the only form I could send from far away. But kids don't need a father pounding on doors at midnight trying to win a debate. So I opened my laptop. First, I logged into the school portal. The overdue balance was still there. I clicked through old notices, payment history, and parent messages. Some had gone only to Serena. Some had gone to both of us. One message from Audrey's teacher made my stomach drop. Hi, Serena. Audrey mentioned that her stepfather Derek may be picking her up after rehearsal. Please make sure he checks in at the front desk if he hasn't already received his pickup badge. Stepfather. I read the word 5 times. Seeing him called a stepfather hurt more than seeing his jacket in my hallway. A jacket could be explained away. A charger could be minimized. But a school calling another man my daughter's stepfather meant Serena had let my replacement walk through doors where I still had to sign forms. I emailed the school office, politely. I said I was Audrey and June's father and needed copies of the current emergency contact and pickup authorization forms. Then I checked our shared checking account. At first, it looked like regular household chaos. Grocery stores, gas, utilities, pharmacy, fast food, online orders. But then I searched by the dates of my transfers. The numbers did what Serena would not do. They told the truth in order. 3 weeks before the school notice, I had transferred money labeled Audrey tuition plus June activity. 2 days later, Serena moved a nearly identical amount into another account I didn't recognize. That weekend, there were charges for a restaurant I had never been to, a hotel with a name that made my hands go cold, and a men's clothing store. Another transfer labeled for girls had been followed by a charge at a resort-style place 2 counties away. Another labeled mortgage plus activities had covered the mortgage, yes, but only after Serena had pulled money from the college account to make up the difference. I opened the college savings account next. It wasn't empty, but it wasn't what Serena had told me it was. She had told me it was growing, saying more than once, "At least the girl's future is safe." The account had been drained in pieces. Not one huge theft. That would have been easier to see. Instead, there were withdrawals small enough to sound like emergencies and large enough to matter. $600 here. $1,200 there. A little under $3,000 during 1 month. Serena had told me she was barely scraping by. The first withdrawal happened while I was still overseas. The second happened before I even knew Derek existed. The third happened around the same week. June told me Derek had a side of the couch. I sat there until my eyes burned, making a spreadsheet like a man trying to organize the collapse of his marriage into columns. Date, amount, memo, Serena's explanation, actual charge, supporting document. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Serena had left a voicemail instead of knocking on the den door. Her voice was low and tight. Don't make this ugly, Alex. The girls don't need to know every adult detail. Derek stayed here sometimes. Yes, because I needed help and because you weren't here. But if you start dragging everyone through the money, that's on you. You want to be the father who destroys their sense of family over receipts. Go ahead. I saved it. Not because I wanted to use it against her in some cruel way. Because I was beginning to understand that Serena knew exactly which words would make me back down. The next morning, June came into the den in her pajamas holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. Are you still coming to my school thing? She asked. Yes, I said. I'm here now. She looked toward the stairs. Mom said there might be changes. There will be some changes, I said carefully. But not that. I will come to your school things. She nodded like she was trying to believe me. Audrey passed the den door a few minutes later. I said, morning. She stopped but didn't look at me. Mom's crying. I'm sorry she's upset. You don't sound sorry. I set my coffee down. I'm sorry you're in the middle of something adult. That's the truth. She looked at me then, her eyes sharp. You didn't have to be here for the hard stuff, but now you get to decide everything? I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to list every hour I worked, every transfer I sent, every night I stayed awake to hear her voice for 6 minutes. Instead, I saw a child repeating an adult's wound like it was her own. I'm not mad at you, I said. I'm trying to understand what happened in my own house. Mom said you'd make it about money. Money is part of what happened. So are lies. So are boundaries. But you don't have to solve any of it. She looked uncertain for half a second. Then she put her wall back up and walked away. By noon, the school had emailed me the contact forms. Derek was listed as stepfather, with pickup permission for both girls. My name was still there. Serena hadn't removed me. Somehow that made it worse. It was like she hadn't erased me. She had just added him beside me and expected the world to adjust. I found a photo in a shared family album that I had missed while overseas. It was from Audrey's birthday dinner. Serena must have uploaded it without thinking. Derek was seated at the head of the table, in the chair I always used. Audrey was smiling at something off camera. June had frosting on her lip. Serena's hand rested on Derek's shoulder. My chair. My table. My daughters. I sent the forms, the school email, the bank statements, and the voicemail to a family attorney named Martin, whose name I had gotten from someone I trusted. He called me back the same day. Martin didn't waste words. You need to stop paying through someone you no longer trust, he said. I was sitting in my car in a grocery store parking lot because I didn't want Serena overhearing me in the house. If I stop transferring money, she'll say I'm cutting off the girls, I said. Then don't cut off the girls. Pay the school directly. Pay medical providers directly. Pay for activities directly. Buy what the children need and document it. Do not dump cash into a joint account and hope the person misusing it becomes honest because you asked. What about the college savings? Freeze what you legally can. Restrict access where possible. If it's informal marital savings and you use any portion for legal fees, document it, disclose it, and be prepared for the court to account for it. Do not hide anything. Do not move money to punish her. Move money to preserve it. I rubbed my forehead. I don't want to look like I'm stealing from my kids. Then act like a parent under a microscope, Martin said. Clean records. Direct payments. Temporary orders. No kitchen wars. No threats. No social media. She's going to say I'm financially abusing her. She probably will. You answer with documents, not volume. Do not win an argument in your kitchen and lose your position on paper. That sentence stuck. That became my rule. I went back to the house and found Serena at the kitchen table with Carol, her mother. Carol had a purse in her lap and the expression of a woman who had already sentenced me. Serena's eyes were red. There was a tissue balled in her fist. Your mother is here, Serena said, even though that was obvious. Carol looked me up and down. I hope you're proud of yourself. For what exactly? I asked. Serena told me you froze money for the girls. And there it was. The new narrative had begun. I restricted access to an account Serena has been withdrawing from without explanation, I said. Carol scoffed. A father doesn't take from his children to win a divorce. Serena lowered her eyes at just the right time. If I hadn't lived with her for 11 years, I might have believed she was too broken to defend herself. I'm not taking from them, I said. I'm making sure the money goes to them. From now on, I'll pay the school, dentist, counselor, and activities directly. I'm not giving Serena cash to distribute. Serena's head snapped up. You hear that? He thinks I'm some criminal. I think money marked for tuition should pay for tuition. You are financially abusing me, she said. This is exactly what I told everyone. Carol pointed at me. Serena was alone, Alexander. You don't know what that does to a person. I looked at Serena. Loneliness doesn't explain Derek being listed as stepfather on school forms. Carol's mouth opened, then closed. Serena stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. Do not start throwing adult words around in this house. Stepfather is not my word, I said. It's on the form. Because he helped, she shouted. He was there when you weren't. Audrey appeared in the hallway, her face pale. June stood behind her. I took a breath and lowered my voice. This conversation is done for now. Serena laughed bitterly. Of course it is. You get to decide when conversations happen too. No, I said. Martin does. That was the first time I said my attorney's name out loud. For the next week, Serena started treating the house like a stage. If the girls were nearby, she sounded wounded. If they weren't, she sounded furious. You made me lonely, she said one night while I washed June's lunch container at the sink. You chose what to do with that loneliness, I said. Derek cared about us. Derek cared while my account was open. She flinched, then recovered. You're disgusting. You think because you paid bills, you owned us. No, I thought because we were married, you wouldn't use bill money for hotels with another man. She turned away first. Martin sent a formal letter requiring Derek to leave the house and stop presenting himself as a parental figure while custody was being reviewed. It wasn't as satisfying as people imagine. There was no dramatic knock at the door, no police dragging him out, no big movie moment. There was just an email, a certified letter, and Derek suddenly becoming very busy elsewhere. He still came by once after that, standing on my porch like he was the reasonable one. This doesn't have to be hostile, he said. I stayed inside the doorway. Then leave. The girls need consistency. They needed honesty before consistency. You gave them neither. He looked past me into the house. You weren't here, man. I nodded once. And somehow my money was. Funny how that worked out for you. His jaw tightened. This isn't about me. It is when your name is on a hotel receipt paid with money marked for tuition. He didn't have a comeback for that. Men like Derek are confident until the conversation gets specific. After he left, I checked the doorbell camera history. I had never cared about it before beyond package deliveries, but now I scrolled through clips from the months I was gone. Derek entering with grocery bags. Derek leaving in the morning wearing the same hoodie I had seen in my bedroom. Derek carrying June's backpack. Derek and Serena coming home late while Audrey held the door open. I saved clips. Not all of them. I didn't need a movie. I needed a timeline. The ugliest proof came from text messages on Serena's old laptop, which was still logged into a messaging app. I didn't hack anything. I didn't guess a password. I opened a device in our home that she had used for years, and there it was, syncing like it wanted to be found. Derek, his transfers hit again. Serena, yes. Don't start. Bills first. Derek, I'm not starting. Just saying the husband pays for everything and doesn't even know it. Serena, he's gone. Let me have one thing that feels good. I sat perfectly still after reading that. It wasn't because of the affair. By then, the affair was no longer a question. It was the casualness of it all. The way my sacrifice had become a joke. The way his transfers hit sounded like a paycheck, not a husband trying to hold his family together from across an ocean. I printed everything. Bank statements. Transfer confirmations. School notices. The emergency contact form. The teacher email. Hotel receipts. Doorbell stills. The birthday dinner photo. The voicemail transcript. A short legal summary Martin prepared that listed what had been frozen, what was being paid directly, and what still needed court review. I didn't show the girls. I didn't want Audrey and June reading hotel receipts like they were evidence in a crime show. They were children. They deserved age-appropriate truth, not adult humiliation. Serena did not feel the same restraint. One afternoon, Audrey came home from school and went straight to her room. When I knocked, she said, "Go away." I opened the door halfway. "I won't come in. I just want to know if you're okay." She was sitting on the edge of her bed, still wearing her backpack. "Mom said you used our college money for a lawyer," she said. I closed my eyes for 1 second. I used emergency savings and a limited part of an informal account after speaking with an attorney, I said carefully. It is documented, and the rest is restricted so no one can drain it. That sounds like yes. It's not that simple. It never is when adults do bad stuff. That landed. You're right, I said. Adults make things complicated, and then kids get stuck feeling like they have to pick the least lying person. I'm sorry for that. She stared at the carpet. Did Mom take money too? I could feel the line in front of me. Too much truth, and I would be using her the same way Serena had. Too little, and I would be letting a lie harden around us. Yes, I said. There were withdrawals before I came home. The court and the lawyers are going to handle that. Audrey's eyes filled, but she blinked it back. So was everything she said a lie? No, I said. She was lonely. You were probably hurt. I was gone. Those parts can be true. But some other things she said about the money are not true. I don't know who I'm supposed to believe. You don't have to decide tonight. And you don't have to defend me. Just don't let anyone make you carry a lie for them. She turned toward the window and wiped her face quickly, as if she was embarrassed to have one. A few days later, Carol called me. We're having dinner Sunday, she said. We? Family. Serena thinks everyone needs to sit down and talk before this gets worse. I almost laughed. It had already gotten worse. It had gotten worse in my bedroom, in my bank account, in my daughter's school records. Who's everyone? I asked. Me. Serena. The girls. Peter. Maybe Derek if Serena wants support. Derek will not be there if my daughters are there. Carol made an offended noise. Alexander, you don't get to dictate. Derek will not be there if my daughters are there. I repeated. That is not negotiable. She paused. You know, a decent father would want peace. A decent mother wouldn't hide the first withdrawal. She went quiet for half a second. What withdrawal? Asked Serena. I hung up before she could turn it back on me. Martin advised against turning dinner into a circus. He was right. But he also understood that Serena was using family pressure to shape the narrative before court made documents unavoidable. He told me, if you go, you do not argue. You present enough to correct the false claim. Then you leave. So I went. I didn't bring a speech. I brought dates, amounts, and receipts. Dinner was at Carol's house. I'd eaten at that table dozens of times over the years. Thanksgiving sides spread across it. Birthday cakes. Paper plates after swim meets. That night it looked too polished, like Carol had tried to force normality to happen. There was a roast on the counter, salad in a glass bowl, iced tea sweating in a pitcher. Audrey sat beside June, stiff and quiet. June picked at a roll, tearing it into little pieces without eating. Uncle Peter sat near the end of the table, watching everyone with the tired expression of a man who had been told two versions and believed neither completely. Serena arrived last, wearing a sweater I once liked. Her eyes were already red. Derek was not there. That was one boundary that held. Carol started before the food was fully passed. We are here because this family is being torn apart, and the girls shouldn't have to suffer because of adult anger. I looked at my daughters, not at her. June's shoulders were hunched. Audrey's mouth was pressed into a line. Serena sniffed. I don't want to fight. I really don't. But Alex came home and decided to punish everyone because he couldn't handle that life went on without him. I said nothing. She looked at the girls, then back at me. I was alone for 10 months. Alone with bills, kids, school calls, everything. Derek helped. Maybe that wasn't perfect. But what Alex did after? Freezing accounts? Taking from the girl's future for a divorce lawyer? That is not protection. That is revenge. Carol reached over and squeezed Serena's hand. Audrey watched me. Her face said, please don't make this worse. Uncle Peter leaned back. Alexander, I thought this was ugly when I heard it. I still do. You got anything to say? I set the sealed envelope on the table. Serena's eyes flicked down to it. You told everyone I stole from my daughters, I said. So let's start with the first withdrawal. Nobody moved. I opened the envelope and took out the first page. It wasn't the hotel receipt. Not the texts. Not anything that would make the girls see too much. It was the college account statement with dates and amounts highlighted. I slid it toward Carol and Peter, not toward the girls. This is the informal college savings account. This first withdrawal happened in March. I was overseas. I hadn't come home. I hadn't hired a lawyer. I hadn't frozen anything. Serena moved $1,200 out 3 days after I transferred money labeled for tuition. Serena's face hardened. We had bills. Then why wasn't tuition paid? Because everything was behind. You don't understand how hard. I placed the overdue school notice beside the statement. This is the notice from the school. Same period. Unpaid. Carol stared at the papers. Serena? Serena's voice rose. Are we really doing this? In front of my children? You invited them to hear that I stole their future, I said. I'm correcting that lie without showing them the adult details. You are humiliating me. No, I said. The dates are. Peter picked up the statement. What account did it go to? I took out the next page. A separate account I didn't have access to. From there, some of it went to household bills. Some did not. Serena stood. I'm not sitting here while you act like a saint. Sit down, Carol said quietly. That surprised everyone, including Serena. Carol didn't look at me. She kept staring at the bank statement. I took out the school emergency contact form next. This is why I stopped allowing informal access around the girls. Derek was listed as stepfather with pickup permission. I was not told. Audrey inhaled sharply. June whispered, he picked me up after art. I know, I said gently. You're not in trouble. Serena turned toward June. Baby, no one said you were. June shrank back, and Audrey put an arm around her. Peter took the form from Carol. Stepfather. Serena wiped her cheek. It was easier for the school. He was helping. Were you divorced? Peter asked. Serena glared at him. You know we weren't. Then that's not a convenience. That's a story. For the first time since I had known him, I wanted to thank Peter. I placed the transfer timeline on the table. I sent money with memos. Tuition, girls, mortgage and activities. The mortgage was often paid late or covered only after money was pulled from the college account. The school was overdue. Meanwhile, there are charges I am not going to describe in front of Audrey and June. But they are documented and attached for the attorneys. Serena laughed, but it cracked in the middle. Listen to him. Attached for the attorneys. This is what I lived with. Receipts and control. I looked at her. I'm not discussing feelings until we discuss the money. Of course not, she snapped. Because feelings make you look bad. No. The money shows why your version is false. Carol's hand shook slightly as she turned a page. What is this hotel charge? Audrey stood up fast. I don't want to hear that. I looked at her immediately. You don't have to. Serena pointed at me. See? Look what you're doing to her. No. Audrey said, louder than any of us expected. Everyone stopped. Audrey's face was red, and she looked like she hated all of us. You both keep saying it's for us, but I'm the one sitting here feeling stupid. Mom, you told me Dad took the money. Dad, you have papers saying she did. I don't want to be your proof. My throat tightened. You're right, I said. You should not be proof. I'm sorry. Serena reached for Audrey, but Audrey stepped back. Did you tell the school Derek was our stepdad? Audrey asked her. Serena's mouth opened. Audrey's eyes filled. Did you? It was complicated, Serena said. Audrey gave a short, broken laugh. That's adult for yes. She walked out of the dining room. June hesitated, then followed her. I stood to go after them, but Peter raised a hand. Give them a second. I sat back down because he was right, even though every part of me wanted to chase my daughters and fix what couldn't be fixed in one hallway. Derek picked that moment to call Serena. Her phone lit up on the table, his name glowing like a punchline. Nobody spoke. She silenced it. I took out one final page, the clean legal summary Martin had prepared. This is what actually happened after I came home. I used emergency savings and a documented portion of an informal account for a legal retainer. The rest of the girls' savings has been restricted. From now on, I am paying for school, medical, counseling, and activities directly. I am requesting financial disclosure and temporary custody orders. I am also requesting that money Serena withdrew for non-child expenses be reimbursed into the girls' fund. Serena sat down slowly. You're trying to destroy me. I didn't abandon my daughters, I said. You replaced me while I was paying the bills. Carol's lips pressed together. She didn't defend Serena. She didn't apologize either. She just looked smaller than she had when I arrived. Peter tapped the first statement with one finger. Serena, he said, why did the first withdrawal happen before Alexander even came home? Serena stared at him. I was drowning, she whispered. Peter's voice was not cruel, but it was firm. That's not an answer. She looked at Carol. Carol did not rescue her. Serena's face changed then. The tears stopped working, and a clean anger came through. You all have no idea what it was like, she said. He got to leave. He got to be the good guy with the money. I was the one stuck here with two girls asking why their father wasn't home. Derek showed up. He listened. He made dinner. He sat through June's art thing when Alex called from a screen. And you let him be called their stepfather, I said. Because he acted like one. That sentence fell across the table like broken glass. I pushed back my chair. Then he can start paying like one, I said. Because my cash transfers are done. I found Audrey and June in the small sitting room off the hallway. Audrey was on the floor beside June, who was crying into her sleeve. I sat on the edge of the armchair, far enough not to crowd them. I'm sorry, I said. Audrey wiped her face angrily. I don't want a speech. I don't have one. June looked up. Was Derek bad? That question almost broke me more than anything else. She was 10. She wasn't asking about betrayal or bank statements. She was asking whether someone who had made pancakes and carried her backpack had secretly been a monster. Derek was part of an adult situation that should never have been put on you, I said. That doesn't mean every nice thing you remember was fake. It means the adults made wrong choices around you. Are you leaving again? She whispered. Not like that, I said. There will be schedules. Some days with me, some days with Mom. But I am not disappearing. Audrey stared at the carpet. I said awful stuff to you. You were repeating what you were told. That's not an excuse. It's not a life sentence either. She looked at me then, and for the first time since I had come home, she looked 14 instead of like a tiny defense attorney for her mother. I don't know what happens now, she said. Counseling, I said. Lawyers. School. Dinner that isn't like this. One honest day at a time. That sounds terrible. Some of it will be. June leaned against Audrey. Can we go home? I almost said yes automatically, then realized home was no longer a simple word. We can leave, I said. And we did. The legal part moved slowly, because real consequences usually do. Serena didn't get struck by lightning. Derek didn't confess everything in a dramatic courtroom. There was no instant ruling where someone in a robe called me a hero. There were temporary orders. There were financial disclosures. There were emails that began with "per my attorney" and ended with "everyone angry." There were corrected school records. Derek's name came off the emergency contact forms. The school was told, in writing, that no one was to refer to him as a parent or release either child to him. I paid the overdue balance directly through the portal, then paid Audrey's fundraiser fee, and June's program cost the same way. I kept receipts for everything, which felt cold until I remembered how expensive trust had become. Martin filed for direct payment arrangements and temporary custody terms. He requested that the court preserve the remaining college-designated savings and require mutual written consent for withdrawals. A notarized agreement came later, after enough pressure and enough documents made pretending impossible. Serena fought at first. She said I was trying to control her. She said I was using money to punish her for needing support. She said I cared more about being right than being a father. Martin's advice stayed in my head. Documents, not volume. So I let the paperwork answer. The bank timeline showed withdrawals before my retainer. The transfer memos showed what the money had been for. The school emails showed Serena had given Derek a role he had no right to have. The doorbell clips showed he wasn't an occasional helper. The hotel receipts made her lawyer much quieter than he had been in the first letter. Derek disappeared the way men like him often do when comfort turns into accountability. At first, Serena said he was giving us space. Then she said he was stressed because I had threatened him legally. Then one night, she called me crying from a number I almost didn't answer. He's not answering, she said. I was standing in the kitchen of the temporary place I had rented, making boxed macaroni because June had requested it like it was a 5-star meal. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because he said he cared about the girls. I looked over at June sitting at the small table, coloring a picture of a house with 2 doors. He cared while my account was open, I said. Serena went silent. Don't call me about Derek again. Call your lawyer. Then I hung up. That felt colder than I expected. Not satisfying. Just final. Carol took longer. She didn't come to me with some perfect apology. Real people rarely do, especially when admitting the truth means admitting they helped hurt their own family. 2 weeks after the dinner, she called and said, I didn't know about those withdrawals. I waited. She added, I should have asked more before I spoke. It wasn't enough, but it was honest enough to leave alone. Yes, I said. You should have. She sighed. How are the girls? Confused. Angry. Sad. Doing their best. Can I see them? When the schedule allows, and when you can see them without defending lies. She didn't like that. I could hear it in her breath. But she said, all right. Audrey started counseling first. She hated it. She called it talking to a stranger in a beige room, which was accurate. The first few sessions, she barely spoke to me on the ride home. Then one afternoon, she got into the car and said, my counselor says Mom made me responsible for adult feelings. I kept my hands on the wheel and didn't overreact. How do you feel about that? I asked, annoyed that she's right. That's fair. She picked at the sleeve of her hoodie. I don't want to hate Mom. I don't want you to hate Mom either. She looked suspicious. Really? Really? You can love your mother and still be honest about what she did. Those are not the same thing. Audrey stared out the window. I don't know how to do that. Most adults don't either. That almost made her smile. June's counseling intake form had a note that made me sit in my car and breathe for a minute before driving home. Child reports confusion regarding household roles and changes in father figure presence. Father figure presence. A phrase so clean it almost hid the damage. June asked smaller questions, usually at bedtime, when the room was quiet and she could pretend she wasn't asking anything big. Did Mom lie because she was mad? Sometimes adults lie because they are scared or ashamed or trying to keep something they know they might lose. I said, do you lie? Sometimes, I said, but I'm trying not to lie to you about things that matter. Are you mad at me for liking Derek? I sat on the edge of her bed and shook my head. No, you were allowed to like someone who was kind to you. The adults were responsible for the situation, not you. She nodded slowly. He made good pancakes. I smiled even though it hurt. Then he made good pancakes. Yours are weird. Mine are improving. They're lumpy. Then tomorrow we make lumpy pancakes. She smiled into her pillow. Those were the moments that mattered more than the legal ones. Still, the legal ones mattered too. The temporary agreement gave Serena and me a custody schedule while the divorce moved forward. It wasn't perfect. No schedule is perfect when kids are being divided between houses because adults broke the original one. But it gave the girls structure, and structure was something they badly needed. The remaining college money was put behind restrictions. Withdrawals required documentation and mutual agreement. Serena had to disclose the accounts I hadn't known about. As part of the settlement negotiations, she agreed to reimburse a portion of the misused funds into the girls' savings. It didn't replace everything. Money rarely comes back as clean as it left, but it put a formal obligation where there used to be only trust. I also replenished the portion I had used for the legal retainer from my side of the divided marital funds once things were settled enough to do it. Not because Serena's accusation had been fair, but because I wanted my daughters to see that the purpose of that money still mattered to me. I had used it in a crisis to protect the family from more damage, and then I put it back when I could. Serena hated that detail. It made her favorite sentence harder to say. She still tried sometimes. During one custody exchange, she stood on the porch with her arms folded while June buckled herself into my car. You know, Serena said quietly, one day they'll understand you chose court over keeping the family together. I looked at her for a long second. No, I said, one day they'll understand court was what happened after you brought another man into their home and called him family while I was paying for it. Her eyes flashed. You love making me the villain. I loved being your husband, I said. That was the problem. I got in the car and drove away before she could answer. The hardest part wasn't losing Serena. By the time the paperwork started, I had already lost the version of her I was grieving. The hardest part was accepting that being quiet would have been easier for everyone except the girls. If I had stayed quiet, Audrey could have kept believing I came home and started counting receipts because I cared more about control than her. June could have kept thinking fathers were interchangeable as long as someone made pancakes and knew where the backpacks went. Carol could have kept calling me cruel at every family event. Serena could have kept the one story that made her betrayal sound like survival. The truth didn't fix everything. Audrey still had days when she was cold with me. Sometimes she apologized for it afterward, and sometimes she didn't. I learned not to chase every mood like a verdict. June still asked whether holidays would be weird now. I told her yes, probably, but weird didn't have to mean bad. Serena and I communicated mostly through an app recommended by the court. She hated the app because it made emotional ambushes harder. I loved it for the same reason. Derek faded into a name nobody said much. The girls mentioned him less over time. Once, Audrey said, "It's embarrassing that I thought he was better because he was there." I told her being present matters, and it wasn't foolish to value that. It just isn't the only thing that matters. Money isn't love, she said. No, I said. But stealing money meant for your kids is not love either. She nodded, and that was enough for that day. Months after I came home, I attended June's school program. I arrived early because I never wanted her scanning a doorway and wondering. Audrey sat beside me, arms crossed, pretending she didn't care that I had saved her a seat away from the aisle because she hated people brushing past her knees. June spotted us from the stage area and waved with both hands. Audrey rolled her eyes and whispered, "She's so embarrassing." Then she waved back. Afterward, we went for burgers. Audrey complained about the fries being too salty. June spilled ketchup on her sleeve. My phone buzzed twice with messages from Serena about weekend logistics, and I answered only what needed answering. At the table, June asked, "Are we still a family?" Audrey looked down at her tray. I wiped ketchup off June's sleeve with a napkin and thought carefully. "Yes," I said, "but not in the same house all the time, and not the way it used to look." "Is that bad?" "It's sad," I said. "Sometimes sad and bad feel the same at first. They aren't always." Audrey watched me. "That's something my counselor would say. Then I want credit for sounding professional." She shook her head, but she smiled into her drink. I didn't win my old life back. That was never going to happen. What I got was messier and more honest. I got school payments made directly. I got custody exchanges with fewer surprises. I got college savings protected by signatures instead of promises. I got daughters who were allowed to be confused without being used as weapons. And I got my name back in my own family. Not as the man Serena described when she needed sympathy. Not as the absent wallet Derek joked about. Not as the villain Carol wanted before she saw the dates. Just Dad. The divorce cost me money. Staying silent would have cost my daughters the truth. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.